Terrorism Task Force, Stephen Rogers. Stephen, do you have any updates, any news?
Well, Greg, you hit the nail on the head. There's very, very little to work on.
Yeah.
And Kimberly brought up a point that I'd like to follow up on. When do you make the decision to go in? Well, you make that decision in the past when there was a shot fired within the confines of the building, when you know a hostage was hurt. But under the environment that we are living today, tactical commanders have to make those decisions quickly, and it looks like you got to go in and you got to eliminate those suspects immediately, or we're going to have a lot more innocent people killed. And there's one more point, and I can tell you that I talked to law enforcement officers today as this was ongoing. The concern is that the Justice Department just recently has ordered the withdrawal of military equipment and military-type tactical equipment from local police departments nationwide. And that is really troublesome when you see something like this and something like what happened in Paris, because I'll tell you what, we're going to need all the equipment that we have to cut down these shooters. And we still don't know, Greg, as you say, there's very little information. We don't know if this is a lone gunman, if this is a terrorist, if this is whoever this person is. But we have to find out who he is and what the motive is, and then take it from there.
All right, Dana?
Stephen, it's Dana Perino, and I was curious, who actually makes that call about when to go in? Whose decision is that?
Oh, that'll be the tactical commander on the ground, the person on the scene. That's the person that has to make the decision, because that's the person that's going to get the information not within minutes, but within seconds. If he hears a shot inside a building, he knows that that's probably a shot that was fired at a hostage. Bingo, he's got to make that decision to move in.
Stephen, David, question about how this works. You mentioned a tactical commander on the ground. You've got state, FBI, and local. At this point, are fusion centers involved? Is there coordination at that level?
I believe there's coordination with regard to intelligence gathering information, but usually there is one person on the ground in charge, and that is your tactical commander. So there's no second guessing, there's no armchair generals. This is so critical and has to be done so quickly, there's no room for error, and that tactical commander is the person that this decision has to be made by.
Stephen, it's Julie. You know, as an FBI agent, at which point do you make the decision, how do you keep these hostages safe while at the same time taking this guy out? You obviously can't keep him there for the foreseeable future. So how does that decision get made?
What a good question. And the decision is made, again, if you feel or if you know that a hostage has been hurt or shot at or injured, that's when you make the decision. And sometimes, you know, we used to in the past think about negotiations and things along those lines, but you can't afford that anymore. It's a tough thing for a commander on the ground, a tough decision for him or her to make, but you know your instinct, your gut is telling you got to move in, you move in. Realizing this, and it's a sad fact, but realizing that there may be some collateral damage and some innocent people killed when you go in and try to eliminate that target.
Hi, Stephen. It's Kimberly Guilfoyle. So I used to be on the shooting team for the SFDA's office when there was an active shooter situation, to go out to the scene to try and be able to get the facts, evidence, information. And I know in situations like that, they'd also would try or attempt to make contact with the shooter if that's possible, and also utilization of cameras inside that facility if they're able to have access to those to get a better idea, because time really is of the essence in a situation like this, especially when you have someone who is really just like an active shooter going on blast. Still, the reports we were getting from Harris Faulkner were that there were rounds still being fired. So hopefully they're closing in a little bit on them. But right now we're not getting any reports that there's been contact. Sometimes those shooters, I'm sure you've seen in your experience, will try to make contact if they have demands, but we're not hearing that yet.
No, and I think, Kimberly, you bring up a good point. Those were rules of engagement in the past. I think they changed once a hostage was shot. Once the police officers were shot, all bets are off. They're going in to neutralize this individual. Now, obviously, they want to get him alive because they have a lot of questions. But my guess is that this is going to end very, very terribly for this suspect. There's no room for trying to negotiate anymore.
Stephen, one real quick follow-up. Is there any way they can figure out how much ammunition he has? I mean, if you look at what he was carrying or what he could have been carrying?
No, well, no, Greg, good question. They'll obviously, I'm sure they know what type of ammunition and what weapon. I understand it's a long rifle, but look, he could be armed to the hill. And I heard earlier that the ATF is on the scene. they may think or have some information that this guy might have explosives around. I found that unusual. FBI, yes. Other agencies, yes. But ATF, a little unusual.
And they'll also be able to know by the type of rounds due to the injuries, what type of slugs are in people to determine and see if it all matches for the same type of weapon or if multiple weapons have been used on scene, which is also going to give them an idea of perhaps the type of weapons used, whether or not he has multiple weapons, which I think is going to be important as well.
And where he got the weapons from. And,
Trace it.
The importance of getting him alive is to get answers to these questions. But even if he is killed, they'll find out where his computers are, his cell phone records are.
Right.
They're going to find everything out about this guy, and maybe if anyone's behind it.
Do a deep dive or he has an accomplice.
Exactly.
Thank you, Stephen. More on the latest developments